Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are at. This is Dr. Diane Sanchez, and I am going to be doing about 9 webcasts regarding the competencies for the career HR professionals. And this first webcast is the course introduction and the HR expertise competency. The learning objective is to describe the 9 distinct elements of the SHRM competency model, that's the Society of Human Resources Management, and apply the concepts to the human resources expertise competency, to key roles and duties. Explain the relevance of the expertise competency to the job of the HR professional. Identify and explain subcompetencies and behaviors that underline the HR expertise competency. Analyze the role that competency plays in helping HR professionals address real-world issues, and demonstrate the ability to apply the HR expertise competency in various contexts. We are going to have the introduction, review the SHRM competency model, and then the definitions and components. So, lesson 1. The purpose is to provide undergraduate and graduate level students with an overview of the SHRM competency model and provide focus on relationship management, communication, ethics, and HR expertise. So these are the 4 modules that are important to an early career in human resources. Not only do you have to have the functional technical skills, which is compensation, benefits, training and development, so on and so forth, but you need to learn how to integrate relationship management, communication, ethics, and HR expertise competencies. So we're going over that. In session 2, or webcast 2, we're going to talk about relationship management. In session 3, or webcast 3, we're going to talk about the ethical practice competency, and in session 4, the communication competency. These 4 competencies are critical to the beginning of your career. So there's new expectations, obviously. Now, the HR area is professionalizing the workforce. It's clarifying roles and responsibilities on those we serve. We're creating development paths for those within the profession, and we've come up with content-related professional skills that are required to be successful within the profession. And this creates the basis for measurement and certification of professional skills. As you can see in this article, it's a dream or a drag, companies without HR. SHRM also did an article in Harvard Business Review saying it's time to split from HR, that we were no longer relevant. And so there's been back and forth about what is HR, why is it important. Here, a keynote speaker at one of the annual conferences, Tom Friedman, discussed you've got to find your extra, your unique value contribution that justifies why you should be hired, why you should be promoted, and why you should be advanced every year. So before all of this came out, HR had been looked at as an administrative role. And then in later 2015 or 13, we started to really see that HR needed to be a strategic partner in the business. And so that's when SHRM decided to come up with their competency model. So what were the forces of change and why is this important? It's all because of the business and its increased competitiveness. Companies are doing new ways of business and requiring ways of managing people. That's globalization, flexibility, government regulations, and demographic shifts. As you all know, we now have 5 generations in the workplace. With all of that, we need to adapt to accommodate those 4 or 5 generations in the workplace. We've got new regulations. We become a more diverse world, and it's become extremely competitive. Number 2 is new ways of managing people require new competencies and behaviors for HR. So that's why we have a new competency model. We have behavioral attributes along with our technical skills. And then 3, a new focus on competencies and behaviors is a great way to advance the human resources professional. So we've identified successful performance across career levels, and we're focusing on observable, measurable behaviors and proficiency standards. So what's a competency? Well, it has many definitions. It emphasizes other characteristics that are not mentioned in many other competency definitions and models. So SHRM sees these as characteristics that are critical to job success. So, for example, a plumber who is estimating the cost of a job might be a category, i.e. a competency, and within that category are multiple specific skills and knowledge that the plumber needs to estimate correctly. These might include accurate measurement, knowledge of plumbing products, knowledge of building codes, ability to accurately estimate labor hours, and mathematical skills. A totally different category of skills for a plumber might be fluid dynamics and safe practice. Regardless of which profession we're examining, competency models provide a framework for understanding the interrelationship of skills and knowledge to each other and to essential functions. So let's look at the history and the process. In 2011, SHRM Model Development and Assurance of Learning Assessment Development. Bottom line is they looked for best practices and looked to a task force to come up with competency models. They worked with the Society of Industrial and Organizational Psychology. SHRM also examined the relevant academic and professional literature about competency modeling. And based on a review and synthesis of that relevant research and professional leadership, SHRM first developed the working model to describe the competencies needed by HR professionals. This review focused primarily on existing HR competency models as well as on literature that describes the work responsibilities of the HR professional. The Assurance of Learning Assessment in 2011 and the curriculum guidelines are derivative products of the SHRM competency model and are particularly relevant to those who practice HR because they inform colleges and universities of those levels. So most of you now know that we are SHRM aligned and that we needed to align our curriculum with the SHRM competency model. In 2012, the content validation study of the SHRM competency model was a report provided additional information on the process that was used. Next, in 2013, the criterion validation and toolkit was refined, and curriculum guidelines were revalidated. So SHRM did a lot, and I was part of that validation to make sure that these competencies were important. In 2014, SHRM had the competency diagnostic tools, and in 2015, it was certified. So there's two types of expertise competencies, and let's start with the right, which is what most of us know, the HR domains that require HR expertise, right? It's strategy, it's workforce planning and talent management, it's training and development, compensation and benefits, employee and labor relations, and employment law. So those are your technical. And this is the HR expertise foundation competencies. On the left is the behavioral. So on the right, it's what we do, and on the left, it's how we do it. And those are the non-technical behavioral competencies, and they're also referred to as the foundational competencies because they represent the base knowledge that successful HR professionals need about a wide variety of HR functions. So, behavioral competencies are important because we need all of these competencies when we're doing the right hand, the technical competencies. So we need to know relationship management, consultation, leadership and navigation, communication, global and cultural effectiveness, ethical practices, critical evaluation, and business acumen. We need all those behavioral competencies to do our technical work, and that is on the right. So let's put it in a different context. So this is the bike, and on the left it's our technical competencies, the power, what's being performed, and the non-technical is the direction, the how you perform your job. So like I said, it's the what and the how. And to be successful in your HR function and your career, you need to have both the technical and non-technical. So here is the SHRM competency model. And what we're talking about now in the next couple of webcasts is we're going to go over this one, which is the HR expertise, your HR knowledge, ethical practice, relationship management, and communication. And other webcasts will go over the rest. So HR expertise is the knowledge of principle, practices, and functions of effective human resources management. Ethical practice is the integration of integrity and accountability throughout all organizational and business practices. Business acumen, the ability to understand and apply information with which to contribute to an organization's strategic plan. Critical evaluation, interpret information with which to make business decisions and recommendations. Consultation, providing direct guidance to organizational stakeholders. Relationship management, developing and managing interactions to provide service and to support the organization. Communication, ability to effectively exchange information with stakeholders, leadership and navigation, ability to direct and contribute to initiatives and process within the organization, global and cultural effectiveness, the ability to value and consider the perspectives and backgrounds of all parties. So again, I want to highlight that in your early career, communication, relationship management, ethical practice, and HR expertise are critical for your early career HR profession. So here's an example of a competency that goes into definitions, subcompetencies, and behaviors. So SHRM has done this for every competency. So this is an example of critical evaluation. That's one of the senior level competencies. So like I said, the definition, ability to interpret information to make business decisions and recommendations. SHRM has also come up with subcompetencies that are related. And the book goes into a little bit more detail, but those subcompetencies are measurement and assessment skills, objectivity, critical thinking, problem solving, curiosity and inquisitiveness, research methodology, decision making, auditing skills, and knowledge management. Now, rest assured, those of you who are starting our human resources management master's program, this will all be part of your learning through the master's program. So we will be teaching you all of these subcompetencies. So on the right, these are most typically demonstrated by individuals at the highest level proficiency or indicated competency. So it shares with you the executive level. When you are at executive level, the highest level, you make sound decisions based on evaluation and information. You assess the impact of changes to the law, transfer knowledge and best practices. You apply critical thinking to information received from stakeholders. You gather critical information. You analyze the data. You delineate a clear set of best practices. You analyze information, identifies leading indicators of outcomes, and analyzes large quantities of information. This is at the highest level. In the competency model, they give you the early level of critical evaluation and the mid level. So remember, the early level is where we're starting, and then the mid level we will get into, as well as the executive level. This is the senior level and the executive level. But I think what will be easier for you to understand is the levels of expertise. So let's start with what SHRM says and outlines for us about our career levels and our expertise. In 0 to 2 years, you are entry level into the HR function. Now, you can be a specialist, such as a recruiter, or you can just be a generalist as an HR assistant or coordinator. You then progress to the mid-career, which is 3 to 7 years. And that can be a generalist, a full-blown generalist, or experienced specialist. And that it can be in training or development or benefits or compensation or just a strategic partner. You manage projects and programs. This is typically the HR manager, generalist, or specialist. Then you go to the senior level. 8 to 14 years, which is a very experienced generalist or specialist, usually holding titles as director or principal. And then executive level, that's 15 years or more, and that is typically the most experienced person in HR, usually holds the top HR job in the organization or a VP role. So for example, I was Vice President of Human Resources at American Airlines, but my function was everything: diversity, training, development, compensation, benefits, total rewards. So you could have both a specialist and a generalist in those titles. All right, let's talk about the definitions and components of HR expertise competency. So we talked about that you need to know the knowledge of principles, practices, functions of the HR human resources management. You have technical expertise needed by HR professionals to design and enact, evaluate and maintain sound HR practices. You have to have a knowledge of HR policies, practices, laws, and principles. And so those domains are strategy, workforce planning, training and development, talent management, compensation and benefits, employee and labor relations, and employee law. These are the sub-competencies. So if those are all that we need to know, then our sub-competencies need to be strategic business management, workforce planning and employment, human resources development, compensation and benefits, risk management, employee and labor relations, HR technology, global and international human resources capabilities, talent management, and change management. So, what are the other HR behaviors that we need to know? We need to remain current in relevant laws and legal rulings. We need to maintain a knowledge of HR practices, strategies, and technology. We need to demonstrate a working knowledge of critical HR functions. We need to prioritize work duties for maximum efficiency. We need to develop and use best practices, deliver customized human resources solutions for organizational challenges, seek professional HR development, which you are doing by getting a human resources management master's. Your seek processes improvement through numerous resources, and you use core business and HR specific technologies. So why is this important? Because we had over 3,200 respondents rate the importance of each competency for HR professionals to successfully perform their jobs as identified by career level. And that was important for the creation of the new competency model. And the scale was 0 to 3, and that's what was done back in 2011, 12, and 13. So, what are the ways that we can develop our HR expertise? Well, obviously, you're enrolled in the master's program here at Amberton. You need to seek out a mentor that has a good human resources background. That can be myself, or that can be others in your company that know the human resources function really well. Participates in workshops, conferences, training opportunities. There's a ton of SHRM conferences and workshops, I'm sure, all over the country, and they provide opportunity for training. Study the assurance of learning assessment, and that is in the SHRM folder that I have provided for you all in this Moodle. Volunteer to work on a project or assignment take notes during a meeting and ask questions, shadow a senior level employee, identify areas of your strengths and opportunities for development, pay attention to current events and developments that are relevant to an HR practice, and study departmental resources, and engage in self-directed learning. So these are ways that we can develop our HR expertise. Again, as I go through these 9 webcasts, rest assured that all of these will be touched upon in various ways. Thank you for listening to this webcast, and as always, please contact me with any questions or concerns.